Welcome to another episode of the Leading Safely podcast, and welcome to the start of Safe Work Month. Today's episode is like no other. This isn't a fun-filled, excitingly juicy episode. I'm not speaking with a high-flying lawyer, a football superstar, or a CEO today. Instead, this is a raw, hard look at what happens when an event occurs that could have been prevented, when a life is cut horribly short, when colleagues and workmates are left traumatised, when a family is left decimated by a workplace fatality, and there are all these what-ifs to think about. What if there had been learnings from previous near-miss incidents? What if there had been accountability? And what if anyone had had the courage to speak up? My special guest today is Patrizia Cassiniti. Patrizia is an international award-winning work health and safety advocate with a compelling and confronting life story. I'm not going to give you the detail in her story in this intro, as it isn't mine to share. Instead, you will hear her answer my 3 general questions, and then she will go into that story in a lot more detail. Be prepared though. The first time I saw Patrizia was at a health and safety conference. Hearing her words left hundreds of professionals in tears, including myself. This is raw, hard-hitting stuff, especially once you know the why behind what she is doing to advocate for workers to speak up. So, in saying that, the disclaimer here is this. This episode talks about a workplace fatality and the content may be challenging for some listeners. If that is the case, I encourage you to tune out and seek assistance from your support networks. Okay, so here it is. Hi, Patrizia. I know you're super busy with your speaking engagements, so thanks for taking the time to have a chat to me. As you know, I've been asking all of my special guests 3 general health and safety related questions. So let's see what your answer is to the first one. What do you think makes an effective leader when it comes to health and safety?
For me, I think looking at, obviously, I'm not a HSE a professional as such, but I've become very passionate about health and safety, and I deal with a lot of health and safety leaders out there when I go do my safety talks and safety presentations to companies. One thing that I do always say that makes a difference is being personable and so like not just making it safety, because a lot of the workers turn a blind eye to it. They kind of, as soon as they hear they're going into another safety talk, they start rolling their eyes out, and it's like, I've got another safety talk for us. What I find is making it personal and getting workers involved when it comes to decision making, when it comes to their own safety, is one of the most important things, because as a leader, yes, you're out there to give out the instructions, but the worker is pretty much the decision maker on how he or she is going to undertake the job. Making them be part of those decisions on how safety matters within that workspace, I think is very important, and that's what would make an effective leader.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that empowerment kind of piece. And I guess in similar lines to that, what would be your words of wisdom for someone dealing with people who don't want to change when it comes to health and safety, or more specifically for people who may not see it as a priority, or needs to speak up?
Complacency is one of the biggest problems we have, and the inability to speak up. And this is why I'm so passionate about my safety presentation in making sure that complacency and speaking up is one of the biggest things that we bring forth. Now, a lot of people don't realise they're being complacent because they've been doing it for so many years. They continue to do their jobs the way they've always done it. But bringing it back to family and making the worker understand that safety is there for a reason. Safety protocols are placed there for a reason. Even though you haven't done this for many years, things have changed to keep the person safe. or the worker safe. But not just shoving them in that situation and saying, okay, this is what you have to do from now on because this is the way health and safety goes. But to say we've made changes to the way things go because we'd like you to go home to your family. And making the worker realise that we all have family waiting at home for us and that we can't risk death or injury just to get a job done. And that's what's important when you're dealing with people who don't want to change, because when you bring it back to their family, they start thinking. They actually think, yes, why am I risking my life or injuring myself just to get somebody else's job done?
Yeah, it's not worth it in the end, is it?
It's not, because we all have a reason why we go to work, and that reason is to help, obviously with bills and mortgages to pay and generally to live. We need to work to live. So we've got to stop risking death and injury to get a job done.
And obviously the last question there is, if you could invent something to solve a health and safety issue in the workplace where expenditure or opinions didn't matter, what would you create and why?
I go back to empowerment. We need to empower workers to get more involved when it comes to decision making in health and safety, because they are the ones on the ground. They're the ones doing the jobs, asking what do you need? Like, what is it that we can do better? Not just making it an executive decision, but to involve workers when they make those decisions on how health and safety should be undertaken within the workplace.
Yeah.
Get everybody involved. I think it's so important. We're all human. We all have families, and as leaders, you don't want ever anything to happen on your watch. But the same thing, no one wants to go to work and die or get injured. So we also need to play a part and take responsibility for what health and safety should look like, and put our part into it when, especially if expenditures out there or opinions need to be put forward. Those opinions need to come from people who are actually on the job, doing the job.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. And obviously I know your story, I know who you are and your background, and why I've obviously invited you on the podcast today to have a chat. Some of our listeners may not though. So do you want to perhaps share with them, who you are, what's your background, and the importance of some of the answers that you've spoken about, in regards to speaking up? Why is speaking up important to you?
So basically, with us, Christopher was my middle son, and he had just turned 18 on Wednesday, and he went to work on the following Monday and never came home. And for us, it still is today a shock to send, your son at work and he never comes home. So since the day he died, I've been on a mission. Unfortunately, Christopher was crushed by a scaffold collapse at his job site in Macquarie Park, and Christopher wasn't even on the scaffold. He was beside it. He was forming up a planter box. The complacent decision that was made was to remove every single tie off the scaffold, and then also overload it by 19.5 tons. And this made the scaffold collapse, and unfortunately my son got caught underneath and was suffocated to death. Because of this unnecessary and totally avoidable situation, my anger is so deep that I've turned my anger into something positive, to be able to go out there to speak to workers about complacency, and being able to speak up when they're being put into dangerous situations and unsafe situations where, unfortunately speaking up is one of those taboos, and everyone seems to have it ingrained that if they do speak up, they will be victimised or they may lose their jobs. And because of this, things happen and incidents happen at work that shouldn't. And I can tell you now, most incidents that happen aren't accidents. They're always incidents waiting to happen because of complacent decisions that are made that lead up to it. And I just want to go out there to, in honour of my son, to enable workers to get that courage to be able to speak up when they are faced with unsafe situations, and also to just put themselves in a place where they are being complacent, and to just think about that moment where they're having a she'll be right moment, to just stop and evaluate, because it is their lives that they're putting at risk as well. And as I said before, we all have families to go home to. Going to work safe every single day because of our families, I think should be in everybody's mind, because I think it's important. Christopher died so unnecessarily, in totally avoidable circumstances, and I can't live that down, and that's why I'm so passionate about health and safety, getting out there to speak to as many workers as I can, making them realise that we are precious and priceless, and we do need to go to work safe every single day so we can come home to our families.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Patrizia. And obviously with your speaking engagements, if any of our listeners are listening and would like you to present at their organisations, how do they get in touch with you for that?
They can find me on LinkedIn under Patrizia Cassiniti, Touched by Christopher. They can also email me on info@letstalkaboutsafety.com.au, or they can call me. I'm very easily found on social media, especially on LinkedIn, under Patrizia Cassiniti, Touched by Christopher. And they can private message me as well.
No, that's great. And what about with the foundation, the Christopher Foundation? How are things travelling with that?
Touched by Christopher, we put the foundation together to help families who've lost loved ones in the workplace, and we provide families with 3 months worth of groceries and also pay any outstanding bills that may be outstanding. The foundation is slowly growing and getting more traction out there, and people are actually realising that we're here. With privacy laws, it's really hard to connect with families unless until the situation has actually been televised and the incident's been televised on the news. That's the only time I ever get to know that someone's died because of those privacy laws. So when we do get in touch with those families, we're able to help them, but we want to get to more families, the ones that we don't get to hear about. I also want to extend to help out with any mortgages or rent that they may have for 3 months as well with the foundation. But getting the word out there is the most important thing, is to let people know that Touched by Christopher exists and that we can help families who've lost loved ones in the workplace. And
that's great. And the same avenues are used to get in touch with you, as you mentioned earlier, so your email and your phone number for the foundation requests as well?
My phone number's, I can give you the phone number. It's 0414 656 621. That's my personal phone number, and my work number, it's all in one, and anyone can call me to ask questions about the foundation or the safety presentations that I do. As I said, I'm also available on all LinkedIn, Instagram and Facebook as well. So it's getting that name out there and letting people know that we're here to help.
Yeah. No, thanks for that. And thanks for sharing, your insights, but also your story and Christopher's story with us. I remember that it made such a massive impact on me personally. And I remember going to various, events and things and mentioning your name and mentioning his story and trying to, portray that image that everyone should speak up. But it definitely, it helps when, it's coming from you, and the message definitely comes across quite succinct and hard, as unfortunate as it is. So I'd highly recommend, if anyone does need to make that impact or wants, Patricia to come and speak to their workers, that they take the opportunity. But also taking donations. Patricia, do you need donations for the foundation as well?
Yeah, we do have a donate now button on the touchedbychristopher.au website. Anyone can donate to that. We do have events that we'll be putting together soon. So it's just a matter of following us on our social media, and then once we have an event out there, people can attend that to help with the fundraising as well.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much again for your time. Appreciate you sharing your story and your words of wisdom with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
No worries. Thanks.
Take care.
There you go. The story of Christopher Cassiniti, a fun, loving young man who died in a workplace event in New South Wales just days after his 18th birthday. As a passionate health and safety professional, this story rocks me to my core and it makes me angry. If you take the time to research the story, look at the YouTube clips, you can see the absolute mayhem that occurred post-event. The precursors to the event were bad enough. There was numerous instances of unsafe conditions on site, where WorkSafe New South Wales had provided warnings to the organisation Christopher worked for. Then there was the overloading of the scaffolding and the removal of all the tyres, which ultimately caused the collapse of the scaffolding, resulting in Christopher's death. But if you watch the YouTube clips, the immediate response to the event is beyond comprehensible. There is no structure, no logical response. No one knew what to do, who to call, and the screams of panic and confusion that you can clearly hear, they just hit you. It's clear there are cultural issues on site. It's clear there had been previous events without learnings, and it's clear there's a lack of accountability high up within that organisation where it should have hit the hardest. What's left is Patrizia Cassiniti advocating for frontline workers to speak up, to not be complacent, and to report unsafe acts and events. If you follow the story, you will also know there was a pretty decent fine for the construction company. However, no jail time eventuated. My head and my heart are in two places on that one, and that's where I'm going to leave that comment. However, I 100% advocate for the core of Patricia's message. Think about the value of your own life and those around you. Recognise that your worth is more than that unsafe act that you're witnessing or that condition you know is not right. Don't be afraid to speak up and to speak out to influence the change that needs to occur. And if you are speaking up or speaking out and it falls on deaf ears, do more. Take the matter to the union. Take it to your regulator. Do what you can so that those shortcomings are identified and the risks are addressed appropriately. We cannot keep hearing of more Christophers. We have to do better. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, stay safe.